Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss about the Python patterns that we create and some basic core Python stuff, like how to create different patterns using Python, basically the conditional statement and the use of for loop here it is required more. So I have taken some sample patterns and we are going to write the code. I'll explain you have already written that code so that you guys can easily understand that how we create those patterns. So the very first example, we need to create a pattern, something like the into the increasing order of numbers and like in every row you could say, and that should be decreasing like in first the number of count of the records we should have, so you can consider it like that. So in the very first column they are one starting from 1 goes till 5, in second it starts from 2 and goes till 5. That means they are decreasing. I mean the number of the rows are decreasing, like previously we had 5, then 4, then 3, then 2 and 1, so on. So to do this, I have for this example it was like in the sample it is for 5 rows, but you can take entry from the end user to get it. So I have given that option. We can get the entry from end user that how many rows they required. Once we get that value, for example they pass 5 here, so the value of rows will be 5, and we are going to apply a for loop on the range of that number that user has given. So because in range last range is excluded, so we are going to take it as the value of rows plus 1 means if it is 5, then it is going to be run till 5 plus 1 means 6. And then we have applied another for loop inside it, and there we are going to display the number. So whatever the value it has been passed into the rows, that is coming to the I, and then we are going to again rerun a new loop, nested loop we call it, on that value, and then we are going to print that, and we need to put that in each row. So how it will look like once I run it. So you see we need to pass the number of rows. Let's say I pass, for example, 5, and I run it. So how it works, the value of 5, it goes here, then we apply for loop, so that will be 5 plus 1. So basically it going to be run plus 5 plus 1, and the value of 5 is going to be changed for each iteration. Whatever the value of 5, we are going to rerun another loop on that, and then we are going to print that value only which is coming from the previous outer loop, and then we put it here. So we can make change for the another number as well. Let's say if we pass 6, so it will be something like this. So how we create that version. So the next one is we need to create a pyramid pattern of same numbers as columns. So whatever the number is there in the column, so that should be there to each and every column in the same number in increasing order. So to do this, because we need to increment that value, so first we take the entry. So I have put it the values as 5 only, total number of rows that required. So you may increase or decrease that as per your requirement. And then we have applied a for loop, so which starts from 1 and goes till that value plus 1, which means from 1 to 6. So that means it will run from 1 to 5 only. And then another for loop, which is whatever the value we are going to store here in I, and we are going to utilize it as a last range in the second for loop. And then we are going to print the value of j. So let me run it. So whatever the value is there, so it is going to start from 1 to 6 on the first loop. The value first iteration, the value of range is 1 here, and then we have to that is going to be there in the second loop. So that is 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 2, so which is going to be printed there, and so on. So if we pass the value of row as 6, so the loop will run something like this. So this is how we create it. It's quite simple. So the next is we need to create an inverted pyramid pattern for numbers, something like this. So they are basically the number of rows we are decreasing. So let's say the count of rows, initially in the first row we have total 5 records, then we have 4, then 3, then 2 and 1. So to do this, first we define the number of rows that we needed, because we need to increment it, the value that is going to be printed into a next row. So I have initialized a different variable which starts from 0. So I'm going to apply a for loop which is like to the range of that value and goes till because I'm going to take it a reverse loop. So I have steps that I want to be performed on this for loop is from -1 means the negative looping, which starts from the end. So this is how it's going to be start from 0 till the number of rows. And then for each and every value of the b, which is 0, I am going to increment it. So on the first iteration, this will be 0 plus 1, which is 1. And then on the second iteration, whatever the value we will be having here, it is going to be incremented, something like that. And on the other hand, we are going to increase the count, I mean the +1 we are going to do on the value of I, which is coming from this iteration. And then we are going to print b, and that's it. And because we require to print it in a reverse order, so that's why I have used /r. So it's depend on this value again. If we pass 6 here and we run it, so we see the value something like this. And let's say if we want to do the increment by 2, so you can give it something like this. So it just starts from 0, then 2, 4, 6, and something like this. So you make a bit modification here, and that will be working for you. So let me correct it once again, because I'm going to share this sheet with you guys as well. So the further, the another pattern that we need to create, that is for the same digit, and we need to create an inverted pyramid, and that should have a same digit every time. So it's quite similar that we want one fixed number, so we don't need to increment it for each and every iteration because the value will be same. So we can initialize the total number of rows that we needed and the number that you needed. So it can be any number. I have used 2. You can take 5, 6, 7, whatever the number that you want to showcase. And then I applied for loop here and in a reverse order. And I don't need increment of that value. So I'm going to apply a nested loop, and which is going to be start from 0 till the every iteration it is going to have. Whatever the value we have here, it is going to be here. And then I'll be printing it in a reverse order. So whatever you would, I mean, you can customize it here. Let's say total 6 number of rows you needed, and the number that you want to showcase, that is 5. So you may run it something like this. So it is quite similar to that. So let me again change it. And here it goes. So the next is another inverted half pyramid pattern that we need to create, but this time that is something different. For each column that should be having a incremented value. So let's say it starts from 0, and in every next column that should be 0 plus 1, then whatever the value in we have, then +1 to that value, and so on. And the same time we need to decrease it in a let's say we have total 5 records, then it should be 4, 3, 2, and 1. So how we are going to do? First, we define total number of rows. Here also we are going to do a, the reverse looping. So the reverse iteration we are going to provide. And then because we are going to increment it for each and every iteration. So to the nested loop, we are going to do a +1. And then simply we print it in a reverse order. If you want 0, +2, 4, and whatever the value you want, so you can make changes here. Right. So this time, here you can start it from any value. Let's say you give 2, 3, 4, 5, any value you can provide. So you may change here as well. Let me put it here, something like this. So here it goes. And you make changes here as well. Let's say you don't want to start from 0. So you make changes here. Let's say I can start from 1. So once you run it, and we have to make changes here as well. So once you run it, you see that it is going to be start from 1. In case you want to start it from 0, you put 0, and so you have to put into a nested loop as well. And here it goes. So the another is you need to create an alternate number pattern using while loop. So alternate number pattern, basically the, let's say one value which starts from 1, and then you drop the next value and take the another one. I mean the every alternate step number that you need to pick. So first you define the total number of rows, and you already put it into the while loop that should be less than equal to the count of total number of rows, because in while loop we may have infinite iterations. So we already defined that we need total 5 rows to be there. And then we have initialized a different variable which starts from 0. Then we have created, applied a while loop, and we have defined that that should be less than the value of 5, which is coming from the total number of rows that you have created. And you have initiated a I variable as a value 1. And then because we need to do the, twice of that value, and we are basically, multiply it with that value, and then we do -1 for it. Basically, let's say total 5 rows, then to the second rows, it should be the multiplication of it by 2, and but it should be less than 1 count to each row. And then we have put it the j plus 1, whatever the value we have in j. So in j, that is going to be incremented, and same goes for the I. And this is coming to this loop, and then we print it. So we see that we have started from I, and that value should be less than equal to row, so which is 5. So it is going to be take only 5 iterations, and then we have iterated a different variable which is j, and the value of j should be less than equal to the value of I here. And then we have multiplied it and the subtracted it by 1, and then we have created a pattern using print. So here it goes, and incremented I and j both. So you may modification here as well. Let's say you want to start it from 2, and the total number of rows you want to have, that is 6. So you make modification here as well. So you see that we have started from 2. So every time it will be having, the difference, that number of rows should be less than equal to the value of, the number of rows, let's say 6. So the I should be less than equal to rows. Let's say you pass it here 10. So this is not going to be work. So because the condition does not match, so it has not printed anything. So it is something like this. So if we pass something, so we have those values here based on the requirement. So the next is we need to have a reverse number pattern. So the reverse, we need to apply a reverse loop over it. So the reverse iteration required. So you pass third parameter into a range function as -1. So that will be taking a reverse loop, and you simply define the value and you print it in a reverse order. That's it, the same value we needed. So we don't need to increment any variable here, right? And let's say we need a reverse pyramid, something like this. So here we see the pattern is like for every column we have the incremented value. Whenever we move to the next column, so the count of total rows decreased. So first we define the total rows that we needed. We may define here, and then we need to apply a for loop for this pattern, and then we have applied a reverse loop, and then we printed that j variable. So that is something like this. So this is how we create a different pattern. I have put it so many pattern here, and I'm going to share that in the notebook here. So you try with this, with all the solutions, and share with me wherever you needed assistance, so that I can explain you that how we could use it and how we can modify it. So that's it for today. Thank you everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.